we never had bargains or contracts or crap like that. When he came down, I said, half of it's yours. And there never was another word said about that half. And then we never put it down in writing, but he got it in the end. Because I'd have closed that sucker down to make sure he got what he had coming.
Of course.
Zach and I had a deal where if you were going to spend over, this is right at the first, that if you were going to spend over $1,000 on anything, we talked about it. And if one of us disagreed, that was the end of it. And that worked out really good for us. I remember taking that canopy off that filling station. And I have no idea how to, I'd run a cutting torch maybe 10 times in my life, but I borrowed a winch truck from Jimmy Skollick over at Offshore Welders. I was up here with his winch truck and his cutting torch, and I had that thing tied up the best I knew how. And one of the guys working for me was on the ground telling me what to do, and that I started cutting on that piece of I-beam like that. I started cutting on that thing, and I thought, what's going to happen when it snaps? and so I backed off a long way and retied it, so it came down pretty good. It was a real challenge.
How old were you, think?
31 or 2. But I had my dad with me, and that made a lot of difference. He sold he was a Sinclair agent, the bulk agent. He sold all Sinclair service stations their gasoline and oil. And he had an office over in east end of Freeport down by Stauffer Chemical. Had the big bulk tanks, and he had a little truck that had a gasoline hauling doohickey on the back, and that's what he did for many years before I even thought about it. Well, I worked at that station on the other end of Avenue A. It doesn't even look like a station anymore. But I worked there all the time I was in high school. And then when I quit down and went back to college, I worked there on the weekends, and it really helped me a lot. And I was 29 years old. And I worked for Cunningham Bearing for 2 years, then I whipped it on EFCO. And that's where I've been for almost 50 years.
Original gas station was down on Avenue A, correct?
Yeah, on Division Street that goes over the bridge.
Yeah.
That's where his old one was, and that's that one up there. And he built that one he built the one where EFCO is first.
Oh, okay.
And he built the one where EFCO is in 52. He moved our house down on Avenue G. And then he he built the one on the other end in 53. And he built it because they made a promise that they was going to put that bridge, they was going to put a new one there in like 50, well, say, somebody in the mid-50s. And they chickened out. That guy that owned that property where the bridge is going to go, he wouldn't sell it. So they condemned it and took it to court. And he built that station in 53, and they built that bridge in 57. So in the interim time, he sold all that business to Quentin Hansen, Kerry Wayne Hansen's daddy.
He sold the Sinclair business to him?
He sold the Sinclair business and that station there.
And was that a franchise is what it was? The Sinclair was
a
franchise? Okay.
It's a franchise.
Uh-huh.
But Sinclair was a big company. What happened to them, all this work was going on here. They were building Dow when Daddy first started doing his thing. And Sinclair wouldn't give Dow a credit card. They were real chinchy with their credit cards. And Texaco sent them out to everybody. Humble sent them out to everybody. I guess Texaco.
And so he dumped Sinclair and got with them?
Well, he didn't dump. He sold out. And somehow he kept the station where EFCO is. Thank goodness. He opened that up, and I mean, I never saw so many cars in my lifetime. They gave away a black and white TV set, and nobody had a TV set. So they were coming there buying a gasoline, hoping to...
Marketing.
It wasn't, Daddy had leased it out to a man by the name of Ray Martin and Benny Notgrass's daddy. And Benny and Ray's filling station. And I don't think they got along all that great, but Benny got out of business and Ray moved down the street to the one by the bridge. And that one was empty. Evco was just nothing. And I remember I talked to your mother about what I was going to do, and of course she agreed. Well, I'll tell you, the address when we lived there was 1024 Avenue A. Now it's 606 Bradsport Boulevard. And we didn't even, well, if you look at the front of that cuckoo place, you can see where the filling station was, where NOLA was. Then you see where we built that 30 by 60, that first building. And we couldn't figure out what to do with the front. So Jayco, Billy Walchick and Jimmy Clausen owned the Jayco, and I got them to look it over. And I went to college with Walchick, and I remember he said, "You just knew I was one of JB's boys." And JB Snodgrass was one of our teachers at Sam Houston, and I said, "Fix me up something." And we drew it up, and it looked weird. You know, it just didn't look like it. I said, Walter, I said, "I bet you put something here and thing here and another thing." It kind of looked like the damn Alamo. And it favored the Alamo.
I see that.
And
I never really thought about that. But yeah.
They put all the brick and did all the concrete work for that first 30 by 60 and put all the brick up on the front and the side, and that was where we started. And that whole thing cost $10,000. Got time for a story?
Yeah.
I was there putting up stuff after 5, and phone rang. This guy said, "Are you still open?" I said, "If you're going to buy something, I'm open." And it was a guy, his name was Kit Carson. Kit wasn't his real name, but everybody called him that because his last name was Carson. He said, "Where can I buy some 5/8" wire cable? And I said, "I don't have it, but I can get you something right quick." And he said, "Well, where?" I said, "Over at Gerard's." He said, "I'll go pick it up." I said, "Well, I can't make anybody you pick it up." He said, "I'll be back." And was he ever back? He called me again, and he said, "I need some more wire rope." And I said, "I'm not a very good wire rope store." He said, "Do you got any 1/2 inch?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "I just ordered a bunch of rolls of 1/2 inch from Mr. Toby. And when I got there, it was 5 minutes after 5, and he wouldn't let me in." He said, I said, "Come on down." and he did. And boy, he was a great customer, both for me and Gerald. But he worked for the Texas Instruments, had a boat company, a seismograph boat company, and he was over all those. He could write a check for you. And matter of fact, he did. He wrote me one for $56,000, and he wrote Sagnas the same amount for $56,000. And Sagnas said, did Carson write you a check?" And I said, "Yeah, for $56,000. I said, "And he don't owe me a nickel."
Why did he do? And it was legit.
Yeah, it was a good check. And Sagnas said, "Well, why don't you just keep yours and put it in savings?" And Daddy told me to do the same thing. I said, "No." I said, "That man, that's his check." And I took it back out to the boat where he was staying. I said, "I think you made a mistake." And he said, "I don't make mistakes." And I said, "Okay, then I'll just keep this $56,000. No problem." "What are you talking about?" And I told him. He said, "You know your cousin," talking about Sagnas. He said, "Once you get to talking to that fool, you forget everything you're doing." And that's what he did. It was owned by a guy named Dillingham and another guy named Saylor. They owned it, part of each. And it was a dance studio for little girls. And I just walked, it was right after my dad died, and I just didn't know whether I was going to close the Evco down or shoot myself. And I walked over there and looked in the window. It had little dancing girls all over these windows. And I looked in there, and this car pulled up behind me and said, "If you look at it, you got to buy it." And I said, "No, I don't." And I said, who are you? And he said, my name's Ed Saylor. And he said, don't you own that place next door? And I remember telling him, I said, no, it owns me. And he said, $100, hold it for, I don't know, a month or two. I can't remember what it was. And there was a guy that sold wire rope for Wire Rope Company of America named, his name was, golly, I didn't think I'd ever forget him. But anyway, he was on the board of directors of a supply company in Lufkin. And we talked, and him and Daddy were good buddies. And he came down there to the funeral when Daddy died. And I told him what I was thinking about, and he said, why did you buy it? He said, you can't even afford to pay us. I said, I don't know. So he said, see if your daddy will run this thing for a day, and we'll go to Lufkin and I'll show you what you want to do. And we did. And I told Daddy, I said, now, if it gets too rough, he said, Shorty, I got a key, and I can lock it up. I said, okay. So me and, God, I wish I could remember his name. Anyway, we went to Lufkin and had a huge hardware store. I mean, they had everything that I wanted I didn't have. And this guy and his two sons owned it. And one of the sons was a half-wit, and the other one was a friggin' genius. And
that reminds me of me and my sisters.
Yeah. Your sister don't know where we got a sprocket or a lug nut. But anyway, I'm still trying to remember what guy's name. We went up there and looked around, and the hardware store was huge. I mean, it had a big old upstairs. And he said, that's not all of this place. The old man had a machine shop that he ran. And this other guy, names don't do me good anymore, but he owned a wholesale auto parts store. And we went over there and we got to talking, and he was a neat guy, man. He was if I remember, he was a lay Church of Christ preacher, and he was liked a few hours of being a medical doctor. Real smart guy, and more fun to be around. Golly, we never stopped laughing. And he took me over to the parts store, and he had what looked like a brand new hot rod. It had a great big old V8 engine in it. And he said, I'm not quite through. I said, you race? He said, every Sunday. And I just had never met anybody quite like him before. And
this was the guy who was interested in you getting the building. This was his...
No, these people didn't even know each other.
Oh, okay.
He was in Lufkin, and Dillingham was in Houston. He was a Chrysler Plymouth dealer.
Okay.
And anyway, I called him. I said, I think I want that building. Well, excuse me. That's after I talked to, what's his name, in Lufkin.
Did you talk to my mom about this?
Of course not. I didn't want her to find out because I knew she'd stop me. But Ferris was the hardware people's name. And anyway, after I talked to the Ferris people, that's when the thing about he drove up behind me, and that's when that happened. And so I called him. I told him what happened. He said, well, buy it right now, because we're going to make us a hunk of money. And so I did. Dumb deal on my part. I shouldn't have listened to him, but I did. And he was supposed to come down there.
But in retrospect.
Oh, it was still a dumb deal. But he was supposed to come down that weekend. We was going to finalize everything. I said, well, do we need any paperwork? He said, I don't. You might. And I said, how's that? He said, I know somebody. I can't remember the Wireco guy's name. If he likes you, you're good with me. So he called me back that Friday, and he said, Darryl, I can't come down to Freeport this weekend. I've got a auto show in New Orleans. He said, I've got to be at it's a Southern Automotive Show, and we got a booth up there. And I said, well, that's okay. I said, I'll just wait till you get here to buy it. He said, buy it now. And I did. Another mistake. And
Well, at the time you thought.
yeah. And his whole family went up to New Orleans and set up for the show. And this guy got this druggie, went crazy and drove through the park and killed he killed him, dead in hell. His family was watching when he got killed. And man, I didn't know what I was going to do.
That's an incredible story. I mean, just up till there, that's incredible. So that was your guy, and he was gone.
That was my guy, and he was gone, and I was in debt up to my yo-yos with that building over there.
And then his son was
his brother.
His brother was the one that was kind of fucked up.
He was really screwed up bad, and so I your mother never knew none of this.
That's crazy.
She still probably doesn't know any of it. But I drove to Lufkin, and that old boy had gone from a stock boy to a president of a company and a heartbeat. He had on his.
And this is the screwed up one.
Yeah. He had on his double knits and his hush puppies, and there was two other guys.
Not like his brother.
Nothing like his brother. Nothing up here like his brother.
It's weird, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Look at me and Zachy.
I know you are too different. Yeah.
But I walked in his office, and there were two other big fellas in there. And he got up out of his desk, and he said, guys, I want you to meet my new hand. Oh, God. Oh, God. I looked at that son of a gun, and I said, I really wish you hadn't said that. And I said, to make it clear, you two guys, I do not work for that son of a bitch. I do not work for him. He has nothing over me. Zero. We're going into what they call that, some kind of partnership. And I said, if I don't like it, I'll close it up tomorrow. I said, I don't know who you guys are, but God bless you. He said, we're from the district, we're detectives from the New Orleans Police Department. And I said, what are you looking for? He said, we're trying to find out who killed Mr. Parrish. And I said, I thought he got run over by. And we made the deal, and I was dealing with his idiot brother, and the guy that was in the guy that was working for Ben Parrish was his name.
Okay,
Ben
that's
Parrish.
the one who got killed.
Yeah.
Ben, okay.
Ben and Mike. And anyway, it did kick in. But Ben was married to this real pretty woman. And when they got done with a couple of months after everything was settled, we were selling auto parts. They wouldn't let us have carburetors. We didn't have carburetor kits. We didn't have mufflers and tailpipes. I mean, there was no way we was going to make it like that.
Yeah.
And so I lucked on to Mike Hanna, and you know the story about that. But Mike had never worked in an auto parts store. I had never worked in an auto parts store. And we didn't know anybody who had, so Ben's team started bringing stuff down. Still no tailpipes. So this lady that owned the auto parts store down on Gulf Boulevard was going out of business. She called me and said, I got some stuff you want to buy, really cheap. I said, got any muffler tailpipe? I got a whole room full. We went down and got those things, put them up the top of EVCO, in that top two-story building.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody came into the auto parts wanted a tailpipe muffler, we had to go over to EVCO, unlock it, make the ticket out on an EVCO ticket, and then to keep...
Because EVCO was selling to that store, basically.
No, EVCO was selling out of EVCO. We wouldn't give them any of the profit.
Oh, I got you.
You'd probably call that cheating, but I didn't because they wouldn't get us any inventory. And then the miracle happened. We bid a contract with Dow for the auto parts. Me and Zach and Janie and Mike. And we did the best we could. I mean, we cut every corner we could. It took us a good 3 weeks to get it all settled down. And when you do business with Dow, I love doing business with Dow. I love Dow. And they had us bid on this thing. They had us and the Williams Motor Parts over in Freeport anyway, we bid on it. And so one of the guys at the meeting at Dow came up to me and said, Darryl, if you don't get this, somebody's cheating. You're low on everything. You're handy. Your delivery fees are zero. Everybody else has to come out of either Freeport, and that's the Williamsport. They're going to charge us for delivery. And I put that in there for a purpose. I figured that might get their attention. Anyway, he said, this lady called, and me and Zach and Janie were sitting in the office, and her name was Lori Tiemann. And she said, Mr. Evans, I just want to tell you that you guys didn't get that Dow contract. I said, I know. I didn't figure we would. And she said, you knew? I said, yeah, I just was doing it for the hell of it. That bid was kind of long and tedious, but I did it, and I'm glad. And I said, could you tell me why we didn't get it? Oh, there's so many things to it, I just don't want to get into it. And I said, come on, tell me why. She wouldn't tell me. So this African-American lady was in the fro there, and I called her, and I said, why didn't we get that contract? She said, I'm not going to tell you, Darryl, why you didn't get that contract, because you're going to get mad. I said, no, I won't. I said, I didn't figure I'd get it. And she said, your computers are all out of date. I said, okay, I'll buy that. And he said, your personnel aren't trained. I said, I won't buy that. I said, I got the best personnel in the country. And it was something else she said. I can't remember what it was. And I asked her who got it, and she told me. The guy's name was John, some other. And so we were all sitting there looking at each other, and I asked her, I said, who's going to get it? And she said, we were hoping that Williams would get it, and they don't want it.
Williams Diesel?
Williams Motor Parts.
Okay.
They had an auto parts store there. I think it's gone now.
Okay.
But I said, okay. And she said, your computers aren't right. She told the same story that black lady did. And I said, well, okay, that's fine. And our prices were cheaper than theirs. That was true.
Yeah.
You know what kind of computers they used?
The same.
Triad. They had all Triad computers.
Yeah. It's an inside thing.
I'll tell you later what it was.
Okay.
But that's how we lost the auto parts store. And we were all sitting there, and I think Janie said, why don't you call that dude that got it, see if he wants to buy an auto parts store. She was way ahead of her time.
I didn't know that. I didn't know she thought that.
She was an integral part of IFCO and the auto parts
amazing.
store.
What a forward-thinking idea.
She was great.
She was sitting there
thinking.
That's badass.
She was always thinking, but
That's
a lot of
cool.
it, she was thinking about herself too much. But
well,
that's okay. But
you know what? Sometimes it is.
Yeah.
Because look.
But I called Albee. Gene
yeah.
Albee.
Yeah.
And he bought so many auto parts from Ford Motor Company. They gave him a new Lincoln every year. That's how much he sold. Well, Mr. Albee came down and nice fella, just a hell of a good guy. And he went over to buy Williams, and Kenneth Williams wouldn't sell it to him. Just hard-headed. And he came over to us, and we all had a round there, and he said, I'll take it. He said, how much you want for it? The building. And we didn't even contemplate selling the building. And Zach popped up and said, whatever's on the tax rolls. And Mr. Albee said, sounds reasonable to me, $150,000 on the tax rolls. I said, how you want to do this? He said, I'll pay you so much a month if that's all right, and you'll use what's left for the collateral. And I said, looked around there, buddy. I said, it suits me. And I felt so sorry for selling that nice man that piece of junk that Mr. Albee came down and we made a deal. And we couldn't believe what he did. He bought all the belts and pulleys and mufflers and tailpipes. Thank God. We had. he bought them all. We took them out of EFCO.
Were y'all ever expecting that?
No.
Okay.
We had no idea.
Yeah.
And he had the Gates people, of all things, to come down, and I made a brilliant comment. I said, now, all those belts up there on Gates, he said, we don't give a shit. And they bought all the Gates belts. I mean, that's a chunk of money.
Yeah.
And they bought all the mufflers and tailpipes, which I didn't amount to a whole lot. And what else did they buy? Anything automotive we had, they got. And man, that put EFCO back on the choo-choo train. But I told him, I said, Mr. Albee, I said, I'm sorry that it's you that bought this building. I said, I wish it had been some.
After you sold it?
Oh, yeah. Not before. Hell, right. That's stupid. And he said, I can make anything go. I said, well, I'll be praying for you, but if you work with Dal, you can work with anybody. And Zach and Janie were gone somewhere. And the phone rang, it was Mr. Albee, and he said, Mr. Evans, I said, hey. He said, I want you to think about something. He said, if I paid you $20,000 or $25,000, I can't remember which, cash, would you take that building back? I said, you sure about that, Mr. Albee? He said, I know you got to talk to your brother about every financial thing you do. I said, almost everything. I said, yeah, come on down. I'll give you a check for $20,000 right now. He said, well, I'm in Freeport. Come and sell your building back. And that's how I got EFCO back. I mean, 99 back. God, it was God sent too.
Yeah.
Because Dal gave us that big old contract on
absorbent.
Mm-hmm. And then they took it away. They always do that.
But you had the building.
Well, and the buildings, we filled it up with that absorbent as soon as we got it.
Yeah.
That is so weird. We kept the Seaboard building for the absorbent. Emma told me when she had been with me about 4 or 5 months, she said, you are blessed.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I believe I am too. I said, look at my family. I said, man, I got as good a family as you could have, and I didn't even raise them. All of them got degrees, and Will don't need one. He's making more money than all three of them put together. And I said, man, that when he came down, I said, that made all the difference to me. We hired this guy. We called him the sheriff. He had a big old long yellow Cadillac, big old fat guy. And he'd come down there and make a deal with him, a crooked deal.
Yeah. And
he'd get it all in writing and everything. Oh, he's slicker than half shit. He'd come over there and when he nailed one of them, he'd bring him over to me and Zach's office and interview him. He wouldn't let me and Zach in there. We couldn't get in there, not at all. And he'd have them confess right there in our office what they stole, how much it was worth, and have them come back over to our office and resign. Oh, he was terrible. The sheriff could get him every time. He didn't look like the sheriff. He looked like a big fat glove. All right, I'm ready.
I don't know. There could be something wrong. I feel like there could be something wrong with that in the long run. You know what I mean? Like after the sex isn't all that important.
I haven't reached that age yet. I think people who reach that age are just sick or just tired of looking.
I always just figured that was an age you would reach at some point.
Huh?
I always figured that was an age you would reach at some point.
I don't think so.
Man, that sucks.
I mean, I can go without it forever. I mean, it's not like it was when I was your age. I mean, I would look under the covers and under the bushes and shit to try to find something. Your desire deteriorates, but you know it's there. Yeah. Mr. Wiggly gives you here I am down here. Help me.
I'm sure he's very
I was going to go out in the oldest office today singing this little song I made up, and she wasn't in there, so I got the back and everything got turned around. I was going to say, my ass is on fire, Elvira. I think when we were open on Saturdays, and Jake Picard, who owned the half owner of Freeport Constructors, came in there and bought some long stuff. It was over 20 foot long, and it was probably PVC pipe. I can't remember, but he needed a red flag to tie on it where people could see it. That was the law back then. Still may be. And I said, I don't have anything, Jake. And he looked around. I said, yeah, I do. And I said, here's my shirt. It's red. And we tied that shirt on there. And he said, a guy that give his shirt for a customer. He was a good guy too. Mr. Rayburn, hell, I call it. But he had a boat company out of someplace in kind of central Texas, in Kennedy, Texas, where he had his boat company. And there's no water around Kennedy, Texas. But anyway, he called me. I never had met him before. He called me one night. He was staying in a motel down by the Sonic in Freeport, Gold Star.
No star?
That's enough to run you off. I don't believe the Sonic was there then, but Mr. Rayburn told me what he wanted, some stuff for his boats, and I told him, I said, man, you ain't got an account here. I said, we take credit cards. He said, I don't have a credit card that would handle what I want. I thought, why can't my brother be here for this kind of crap? But I looked at the old guy and I said, we'll make a deal. And we got the deal all made. It was several $1,000s. And he looked down at my shoes and he said, what size shoes you wear? I said, 7.5 triple E. And he said, what'd you take for those shoes? And they were old cheap loafers. And I said, hell, I just give them to you. And I did. And boy, I got my money back on that. But, well, that's happened a bunch of times with me. Just being honest and upfront with people.
Anymore.
But what's going to happen to people when Facebook fades? It's going to fade. And
I totally agree.
And there's going to be people left like us out there. Well, that's what my dad told me. He said, you two guys, me and my brother, he said, you can make anything work if you just put your mind to it and gut up. You can make a damn engine run. You can run electricity. And what happens when they dropped a big bomb and nobody got electricity? You can get that gasoline back out of that ground, can't you? I said, yes, sir, I sure can. We did it when they had that gasoline strike. You didn't know that, did you? It didn't bother me a bit.
It didn't?
Drinking beer back there. Had that bar back there. You remember the bar, don't you? This is kind of off the record, but the first one we had there, first little party we had, your sweet mother came and cooked some stuff. You remember Tommy Holt?
Mm-hmm.
Well, him and his wife kept Adrian and Allison. And we invited Tommy and his wife and Miss Heather. She worked for Cunningham Mary, and Miss Heather's daughter. Well, we just made that bar back here. Well, I said, anybody need a beer? And somebody said something, so I took off back here, got me one, and Miss Heather's daughter was right behind me. And I turned around and she kissed me. And I said to myself, Self, this may be the place, it damn sure ain't the time.
Mm-hmm. And
I got my ass back to the front. And I never went back there. Oh, you old dog, you. And the nature of people hadn't changed a damn nickel's worth, I don't think.
I hear you.
Because back then, there was as many assholes as there are now. I mean, I don't think we got any more. You remember me telling you about this guy, I don't know where I was, but this has been recently, and he said, where'd you get that cap? And I said, at EFCO. He said, do you know anything about it? I said, yeah, I kind of own it. And he said, that is the best store I've ever been in my lifetime. And boy, you talk about perking me up.
Yeah.
And he said, you can go in there and somebody's going to make you smile, or shut you up.
Yeah.
And I said, that's the way I like it. I wish I could remember that guy's name.
That's true, though.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's all we do, you know. I'm just carrying on your tradition. That's all I'm doing.
Hell, I still like to go up there and do that, mess with people. I think that a lot of the things that blew people's mind was when, like at 4:30 or 4:45, one of the guys would go back and get him a beer and just lay it on the counter. And they look at me, that guy's drinking beer. I said, you want one? And that just blew their brains out. And all these years, we've never had any trouble with the beer keg. We kind of did one time, but it blew away.
Well, I haven't had any problems since then.
Not a one. Since old A.J. Cuneo got running.
Well, and most people are pretty responsible. Like, they know they can't be drinking.
Well,
if they can't. But if they can, they gonna drink.
Well, that's what Larry Wade said. He said, I'm worried about going from my house down here.
Yeah, this is cool.
I'll tell you, I'll lay it all out.
Tell me your favorite story about Charlie Lathrop. Your favorite story about him.
We took my mom and dad's car to Nuevo Laredo. It was a 50 model Ford, standard shift, no air conditioning. It was me and Charlie and a guy named Gary Nettleton. And I'll tell you how long ago this was. It was before they made that concrete bridge over down at Port Lavaca. You can still see a wooden pier out there. You can when you go over that bridge.
Okay, I don't know.
As you go into Port Lavaca, it's on your left. People fish off of it. And we went to Nuevo Laredo for one purpose. And if I got to tell you that, you don't need to know. And we got down there, and I had never been to a place like that in my life, and neither had Gary or Charlie. And Gary says, "Are those whores?" And I said, "No, they're the Mormon Tabernacle Choir." And I said, "Yes, they're whores." And Charlie's, well, I can't do that. But anyhow, they started coming out there messing with us. And I said, "Gary, I ain't gonna do this." And I said, "I just can't." And he said, "What do you got to do?" I said, "You Yankees are so stupid." But Charlie said, "I'm going to do it." And I said, "Go ahead." And so he went back to his little room, and the door in that little room opened up, and Charlie was almost butt naked on top of this old whore. And people who don't know Charlie, he had a speech impediment, and he looked at me, and we had known each other since birth, I think. And he said, "Darryl, would you loan me $5?" I started laughing. I said, "Well, of course I will."
What does that get you?
I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gary said, Gary wasn't very smart. He said, "What is he doing in there?" And I told him, I can't tell everybody, but he came out to the car. Gary almost got in a fight. He's always was that way, but Charlie came out there, and I said, "Charlie, what?" I said, "Did you kiss that whore? Had lipstick all over." "No, man, she was nasty." I said, "Yeah, I can tell." But he was probably the best human being I've ever known in my life, besides my dad.
That's how Chad is for me. Just a good dude. Just a good dude.
Nobody ever got mad at Charlie. I mean,
no one ever gets mad at Chad either.
He could do anything. I was always the worst thing he ever had was with me, because I always got him in trouble.
Those are good friends.
But man, that hurt me when he died. Golly.
I don't know what I'm going to do whenever Chad goes.
At the funeral home, his kids tried to get me in there to look at him. Yeah. And I said, "That guy never quit smiling. I ain't going to look at him now."
Yeah.
I bought his...
It's tough, man.
I bought his casket and his plot. And if y'all don't burn me up in a crematorium, bury me out there by Charlie.
Okay. I got it on tape.
Okay. There's a lot up there by where Mama and Daddy are buried that's vacant, but I don't want to go there.
And be with him?
Oh, huh?
You would rather be with him?
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. My daddy was pretty cool, but he wasn't near as cool as Charlie.
Okay. How did Zach become, your partner? And I want to hear like one really good story about Zach, But first, I want to hear about how it came to where he was a partner there at EFCO.
Okay. I asked him when I first started to come down, but he had thyroid cancer, and he was working for a place that he was insured, so he couldn't come. So
But he wanted to?
I think he did. He never said one
Yeah.
way or the other, but all those counters at the store, he built them all before he ever came to work there. And
To
anyway,
help you?
huh?
Just to help you out?
He'd do anything I asked you to. We were super good partners until it came to the cows. But let's see how that went.
Because he was working for some
He was working
shipbuilding.
he was working for GA Mosite's company. They were pressure vessel
and
builders.
he was a drafter. Okay.
He was over their engineering department.
Mm-hmm.
And he changed jobs, and he had these terrible headaches. And this guy that he was working for called him in his office. He said, "Zach, don't take me wrong, but I think a psychiatrist could probably help you with your headache." This is what I remember of it. And Zach wasn't immune to going to a shrink, and so he said he'd go, and he said he interviewed this guy. He said he kept coming back to me, and he said, "Tell me more about your brother." And he yabbered on. We were so different. Oh, man. We were real different a long time ago, but now we're not near as different as we were. But he said he got through with that shrink, and he said, before it's all over with, you're going to be more like your brother, and your brother's going to be more like you, and that's the truth, really the truth. And he said, your headaches are going to go away. And almost as soon as he came down to EFCO, the headaches were gone. He had other headaches, and but I don't think he'd have traded that experience for anything, because he didn't have a boss.
Yeah.
Neither one of them.
He was his own boss, really.
Yeah, he was my boss too. I listened to what he was.
Well, yeah, I get that.
Well, I told Zach a long time ago. I said, if you had owned more stock than me, I'd have been fired a long time ago. But I probably wouldn't have, because we had it going for us, for now. See, because my boss at Cunningham, most people don't know where Gulf Supply Building is. You probably do. It's on 332. On the right-hand side, you're going towards the beach.
Okay.
It's a warehouse of some sort now.
Okay.
Right by where they make the drums and stuff. Well, that was Gulf Supply Company. And Mr. Cunningham had rented a place in there to keep his bearings, all his balls and bearings. And we had the bicycle contract with Dow. And anyway, I went in there looking for a job because nobody would hire me. Dow wouldn't hire me back after I got my degree. Thank you, God. And anyway, I went down and I'd bought bearings for Dow when I worked for him. And I went out and talked to Barney, H.L. Barnett. He ran the show out there at Cunningham. I just went in there to talk to him because they were friends. And I said, "Barney, I'm looking for a job." And he said, "Boy, I need a truck driver." But he said, "I can't afford you." I said, "Try me. Just try me." Bill, we were broke. Your mother was warming up beans and shit. Boy, it was pretty tough. And anyway, Barney said, "Well, all I can pay is," I can't remember what it was, but I went to work driving the truck. I knew both plants pretty good. And Paul Cahoon was a truck driver, was our Cunningham's truck driver, and he knew I'd like to go out in the plant and talk to people, so he let me do that. And we also worked on bicycles. And like I say, it was in the back of this big old warehouse. And I had never met the sales manager at Cunningham. And Earl Vaughn was about 6'6", real handsome man, wore $3,000 suits, very professional. And he came back in the back. I never had seen him before. And he looked around, and he said, "Man, I can do this verbatim." Stuck his hand and said, "My name is Earl Vaughn. I'm Vice President and Sales Manager for Cunningham Bearing, and I'd like to meet our new hands." Well, I popped him one out there, and I said, "My name is Darryl Evans, and I'm the president of this fucking bicycle shop." And I had to do it. Well, I couldn't stand it. And he kind of backed off because my hands were all greasy. And Mr. Vaughn says, "What are you doing back here?" I said, "Well, I'm fixing this bicycle." And he said, "Where'd you come from?" And I gave him some smart ass answer. He said, "You know anything about bearings?" I said, "Very little, Mr. Vaughn." I said, "I was buying bearings for Dow when y'all moved down here." I said, "I bought bearings from y'all for about 3 years." I said, "Never bought one from anybody else." And I said, "I know Barney and Paul and Miss Heather out there." And I said, "They're all good friends." "Well, can you interchange a bearing in your head?" And I said, "Yeah, in a heartbeat." And I could. I still can. And he said, "I want you in Houston tomorrow morning." I said, "What for?" I knew what for. He said, "I want you to go outside selling for me." I said, "No, sir, I ain't going to do that." He said, "You're not going to go outside selling for me?" I said, "No, I don't want to." All the outside salesmen I'd ever seen were real first-class jerks. And the ones that called on me when I was at Dow. And anyhow, I said, "No, sir, I'm not coming up there." Well, about 9:30 or 9:45, Barney come running back in there, a little cubby hole. "You're supposed to be." You didn't know Barney. He was.
I did know Barney.
Oh, you did know Barney?
Hell yeah, I worked with him.
Oh, he was Barney Fife in real life.
That was his last name?
No, but Barney Fife on the Andy Griffith Show.
Oh.
But he said, he's always nervous. He said, "Vaughn's on the phone and you're supposed to be in Houston." I said, "Tell the summit I ain't going to be there." I done told him about 4 or 5 times and he don't believe me. But I said, "Maybe you'll believe me." And go tell, "I can't tell him." Anyway, we went through that shit. And I went back up to the front and thought about talking to him. I said, "Barney, I'm going to solve your problem. Tell Earl Vaughn I quit." I walked out the door. And I went home. Your mom was there warming up some kind of crap. And I told her what I was doing there. She made some kind of comment like, "You ought to be. You're full of hot air anyway." But she said, "We don't have any money, Darryl. We're broke." And we were. And about that time, the telephone rang. And it was Mr. Vaughn. And Barbara said, it's a guy named Vaughn." I said, "Oh, shit." So I picked it up. I said, "Mr. Vaughn," I said, "I don't want to piss you off, but I said, I ain't going to be no salesman for you." And he said, "Drive up here, please." I said, "My car won't make it." And I wasn't far from wrong. And he said, "Well, go get the company pickup, fill it up with gas, take $20 out of the petty cash, and get your butt up here." I said, "Damn." So I did. I went up there. And we went through the same thing in his office. Nice office, too. And I walked out. I said, "I ain't going to be your salesman." I said, "I'm sorry." But I said, I just don't want to be a salesman. So we were all jacking around in the Gulf Supplies coffee room. I was entertaining everybody. And at that time, this great big fella came in there, tie, coat. You could tell he had a lot of money. And he said, "Which one of you is Evans?" I said, "That'd be me." He said, "My name's Jack Cunningham." He was the guy that owned the place. And I said, "Well, glad to know you, Mr. Cunningham." He said, "Could we talk?" I said, "Yes, sir." And we went back in the warehouse. He said, "What do you want to come to work for Vaughn? He's got to have you." I said, "No, he don't." Sounded like one of Nola's answers. And he said, "What is it going to take?" I said, "Mr. Cunningham," I said, "I appreciate what you guys are doing, but I said, I just don't want to be a salesman." $800 a month, all expenses paid, in a new car. My God, I was going to kiss
And
him.
what did Mom say?
I thought she was going to start crying. She said, but
I love it.
Nothing worked out for her. I wasn't outside sales material for a big company.
Right.
And they weren't all that big, but they wanted you to make out sales reports. They wanted you to make out expense reports, know who you took to lunch every day. And, you know, I'm not going to do that. And anyway.
But you did it.
For a couple of years.
Yeah.
And my first month there, my gross was a little less than $25,000. A year later, there were 108. And that's pumping it out pretty good. But it was easy.
Well, because that's what you do.
But I mean, I didn't have to know shit about a bearing. All I had to go talk to people and take them to lunch, and have a big old good time.
That's what you do.
But I learned a lot about a bearing. And he sent me to a bearing school.
That sounds awesome.
Oh, it was terrible. It was John Wolfe Selling Aces Workshop. It was every Monday night for 13 weeks in Houston. And your mama would never believe me. But that's all right, too.
Going to bearing school.
Give me my tablet. but there was about 4 or 5 of them Cunningham Bearings there, and nobody wanted to be there. And we'd meet at this kind of like that place out on the beach, that 30 plus or whatever it is.
Oh, Pier 30?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd meet there and get about 2/3 drunk and go down to this motel. It had a big meeting room, and there was all of us plus a couple of other guys, and that's 2 ladies. Bad mistakes in those ladies. But the guy that was teaching it, a hell of a nice guy, said, he said, all this stuff we do here is recorded. Everybody said, that's wonderful. He said, if you please, wouldn't make any obscene gestures or curse. It would sure help me out a lot. First guy that got up there, a guy, and I can never forget his name, Ben Limpak was his name. He said, try that, you fuckers, you know. And he said, this guy shaking his head, and everybody did the same thing. And those ladies never came back. So we went through that whole bunch. It wound up as a bullshit session, more than teaching anything. But we had to turn in our final grade, and I had to sell something to somebody, and they had to sell it to me. Well, I had to have Ben Limpak as my guy I was going to sell, as my buyer. And we didn't rehearse any. I mean, not a nickel's worth. And I walked in with my briefcase, and old Ben was looking around like that. He kept on going. And I said something, you're going to make yourself sick, man. And we didn't know each other. That's the first time I first met. He kept it up. I said, what the shit's up there? And he said, I was thinking about eating lunch. He said, you one of them salesmen that buy lunch? And it was downhill from there. But we go at the GO Club in Houston out there on the 610, they had the graduation exercises. And of course, your mother wouldn't go with me. And it's a hell of a place, man. Everybody's all suited up, and, you know. And Mr. Cudd and Mr. Vaughn were both there. And he said, the teacher guy said, I'm going to do something a little different this time. He said, I'll record that session with Evans and Limpak. And he said, I'm just going to show it to you what we do at our meetings. I said, oh shit, we in trouble, Ben.
They videoed it?
Huh?
Like video recorded?
Oh yeah, they showed it. I knew it was being videoed,
Yeah.
but I didn't think he'd show it to my boss. And he did, and they didn't like it worth a shit. But everybody else in there liked it. And I had to go talk to Mr. Vaughn, Mr. Cunningham next day. I said, that is, I got honest with him. I said, that's just as worthless a way to spend money as I've ever seen in my life. I said, the teacher's a good guy, knows what the shit he's doing. But you got some people in there couldn't sell a dog turd. I mean, or a popsicle. They just don't have it.
Yeah.
You know that guy that taught that thing came up to me and he said, "Do you really like working for Cunningham?" I said, "It's a job." I really didn't like working there, but he said, "If I write the speeches, will you make a tour with me and go and give them?" I said, "No." I said, "I got a family." I'm telling my whole life story here.
This is great.
You hear what she calls me?
Yeah,
Aaron's.
Mr. Aarons.
Richard likes that, Mr. Aaron. Well, that was fun. And I started getting real bad pains in my right foot, which I don't have one.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a real big time pain. And I let it run for about half hour or more. That's what you call a limber one there.
Yeah, I had some clamps.